Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Super Feeler podcast. My name is Laurie, and I am joined by Kat, Heather, Dave, and Shannon today, who I will actually have introduce themselves briefly just because I feel like it's been a long time since we've done that. Before we start, though, I want to acknowledge that we have just had so many weird tech issues in a row that this is a very good example of what, A, our skills working, because Shannon's picture just had a big thing that said issue on it for some reason. There is a dog barking in my background because he's a princess. Kat can see two of Shannon, but the rest of us can only see one. Dave thought that we had a new recording platform called Impulsivity, which is not true. So we're off to a really good start. So if this episode becomes a complete train wreck, it is meant to be, and that is just what it's going to be. Okay, so we're going to talk about the BPD symptom of anger today, which is my number one symptom personally, and I'm nervous to record about it because it's such a hard symptom for me that it's just hard to talk about. But I feel like our beginning of this was great because now I'm already laughing at the ridiculousness of everything in life, so I feel like it's good. Oh, sorry, Kat made the best joke ever when this dog was barking before we hit record about Shannon thought it was her dog, and then Kat said, "What continent is the dog on?" And it was just excellent. So what I'm going to do is have everybody introduce themselves, just briefly, where you are, who you are, pronouns, and how long you've been diagnosed / have you done therapy, that kind of thing. Just so people have some context, because I think we're about 6 or 7 episodes into this series, and I want to make sure that everybody knows your voices and where you're coming from. So maybe I'll start with Kat.
Hey, I'm Kat from and in Scotland. I was diagnosed complex PTSD as a UPD and PTSD 4 years ago now, I think, and then had PTSD diagnosis before that, seeking DID diagnosis, that's more to come soon. And I've done quite a lot of various different therapies and about 2 years of DBT. But at the moment, I'm doing comprehensive resource model therapy stuff.
Awesome. Thanks, Kat. And just trying to math this in my head, I believe Kat has a solo episode coming out about that whole dissociative identity disorder discussion in the next few weeks. So very excited about that. Maybe I'll go next furthest away, or maybe the furthest away. Shannon, do you want to go?
I'm Shannon. I am in Australia. Pronouns are she, her, and I was diagnosed in 2020, so 5 years. Previous to my BPD diagnosis, I had been diagnosed with a generalized anxiety disorder, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and misdiagnosed with bipolar type 2 until we got to the point where the BPD diagnosis came in, and then everything made sense.
It's funny how that works, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thanks, Shannon. My geography is going to be stressful here. Dave, I think you're the next furthest from me.
Probably. I'm in Miami, in Florida, in the United States. I go by he, him. I had to do the math because I'm used to saying it's been 3 years since I got a BPD diagnosis, but it's actually been 4 years. And 3 years since I got an OCD diagnosis. So I've been through, I've worked with a DBT therapist now for almost 4 years. I've been through 2 9-month rounds of DBT group, as well as some in an inpatient setting as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. Did you say you're in Florida? I think you did.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. And then Heather.
I am Heather, and I'm in Georgia in the US, so it's kind of crazy I'm the closest one to you because we are not very close. So I am 37, she, her pronouns, and I've been diagnosed with BPD for about a little over a year, and before that, just regular diagnosis of anxiety and depression and ADHD, and recently CPTSD. We're looking into that. But as far as borderline goes, I've been learning DBT skills for about the same amount of time with an individual therapist, and I've never done any kind of group therapy. And a lot of my skills are self-taught with Marsha and Diana's books.
Awesome. Thanks, Heather. Yeah, it is funny that we're the closest together because, yeah, it's not very far close at all. My name is Laurie and my pronouns are she, her, hers. And I live in Abbotsford, British Columbia, Canada, which is, depending on traffic, it took me 2.5 hours to get to Vancouver yesterday, but it should only take an hour and a half. And I live on the unceded territory of the Matsqui and Sumas First Nations. I have been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder since I was 18, which was 13 years ago now, which is wild. I'm 31. And I have been doing dialectical behavior therapy for probably at least 10 or 11 years now, practicing it. I've never done a full program. I've only done group work. I've done 1.5 rounds of groups within the community, and then have just been incorporating DBT into my life for as long as I can remember. And it feels very well integrated now, which is really awesome. And a lot thanks to the help of these folks who I've worked through a lot of DBT with in our mini series about skills. So did I miss anything? I don't think so. Yeah, I think that's great. So just that way you have everybody's voices in your head if you're new to this series. But I do totally recommend you guys all go back and start from the beginning, because I think they all kind of build on each other in that you'll get to know us all individually a little bit better as we go through the series, because everybody has symptoms that affect them the most. So anger or difficulty controlling anger is one of the 9 borderline personality disorder diagnostic criteria in the DSM, which is the Diagnostic Statistics Manual. And it is interesting that anger is its own symptom, because the other symptom that we just talked about the other day is emotional dysregulation, essentially. It's called affective instability, but that's kind of what the hell does that mean? So essentially intense emotions that go up and down rapidly. And so it's interesting that anger is its own, because you could realistically just consider that an emotion that's within the rest of the emotional dysregulation challenges. But I think, at least for me, it is definitely the biggest emotion problem that I have. And it's also the one that is not as well controlled as all of the others. So curious what everybody else's thoughts are on anger as a general concept in your life with BPD.
Yeah, I think there's always been a certain level of volatility. I think less now than there has been in the past. But if I think back to even primary school, I would ignore, and then they'd blow up. And I would always be the one that would get into trouble. So there were a few memorable kind of times where I ended up kind of on a lunchtime detention for that kind of thing. And then that sort of continued into secondary school. A lot of people would take my bobble out, and I hated it. And I would then go to get it back, but I'd be raging and then get chucked up against some lockers or the wall, or something, like a teacher did once, to calm me down and stuff like that. So it was something that I hid. There was a lot of people pleasing for me. Anger was something that I hid a lot. And then it became very internalized most of the time. So often, even if the other person wasn't there and there was no one else there, I would channel into self-harm. So it's instead of I'd have that moment of rage and then just be oh, I've self-harmed. And then so that kind of tagged in very heavily. So that's an interesting bit about anger. So, and now I struggle to kind of find anger unless, certain small areas of stuff. But so in my 20s, I would, if someone said something or looked at you on the bus, I'd have a rage. I'd be don't you ever look at me like that. And then I'd march off the bus and slam everything around. So yeah, it's definitely there, and it's been one of those unpredictable things where I'm not really quite sure what to do with it. It's just quite hard to hold and very tied into grief and kind of self-hatred and shame and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, totally. I definitely see that from what you've shared about your story so far on this show. A lot more of it is internalized now, but it's interesting to know that when you were a kid, it was a bit more externalized, and that you were having those blowouts to other people, especially in elementary school and stuff, or primary school. I have this distinct memory of being in it was either grade 1 or 2, because I had a split class. and being thrown over the shoulder of a teacher and marched down to the principal's office, and literally just kicking and screaming as he walked me over his shoulder down to the principal's office, which is like nowadays I don't think would fly, but I am sure that that was something that was based on anger at the time, and I was very angry about it, and yeah, had a lot of getting in trouble when I was in school for sure. How about Dave? Do you want to share a little bit about what anger looks like for you?
Sure. So, I would say that anger for me has been one of the most dramatic changes since I started doing DBT, in the sense that like my particular experience around anger has really completely gone. So, which is really nice. And not because I'm like,
yeah, I'm really jealous. Not gonna lie.
No, I mean, not, and it's not that. How about this? Like, it's not that it's not that I never feel angry. So it doesn't feel like I'm suppressing emotions. It's just the kind of anger that's like out of proportion to the situation. I mean, sometimes anger is appropriate. There's a therapist one time who she said something that actually was kind of helpful around, that anger, it's a reaction to, something. It's a reaction, and the question is it a reaction that is then helping, that you turn to like a useful purpose, or is it a reaction that's just destructive to your own purposes? And I would say that the like destructive part of it, the inappropriate part of it, really is gone, which is great because I felt a lot of shame about that. So I think that for me, I was never someone that just like raged out at just sort of, particularly at like people who were close to me. I really didn't feel safe, to get first, when I was younger, to get angry at my parents. It didn't feel safe. And then, it never felt safe to get angry or to feel angry at my wife, so that was like a big block. How can you be with somebody for like almost 30 years and like never sort of like express anger at them? I mean, even the most well-adjusted people, I think, do that, right? You just wake up on the wrong side of the bed one day and you feel angry about stuff. But what that meant is that, it like leaked out in other places, and in particular, for me, where I really noticed it was it would leak out at like random. It was always in situations where like I was absolutely in the right from every possible point of view. I was in the right, and it would like let me open the floodgates of like all the sort of like pent up anger, and it was like a fire hose of anger that would like go for somebody. So for like the like for me, the classic example is crosswalks, where like I would go jogging. I'm a runner and I go jogging every day, and I live in Miami, like sort of in Miami, and we're not one of those cities, like one of those West Coast cities where like people aggressively stop for crosswalks, and like it's like a real point of pride to like not blow through crosswalks when there's someone trying to cross. And I mean, here in Miami, people just ignore them, and so in the route that I ran every day, there was like one particular crosswalk that I had to cross. Whenever there were cars coming, they would just blow right through it. And so there was no sense in which like they were right and I was wrong. Like I was the pedestrian, they were in the car, they had to stop. It was dangerous. Like lots of families and little kids crossed there. Like, someone could get hit by a car, but I would lose my mind. Like I would just like be screaming. Like I definitely banged on people's windows a couple times. One time I like screamed at a cop that like drove through it when I was trying to cross, and the cop actually like turned around and then followed me down a one-way street and like, just to like see what was going on. And I would actually like, I would anticipate it. It's like I would be on the jog. And as I got closer and closer to the crosswalk, I would actually start like hoping that there would be a car that would blow through the crosswalk, because I would be like anticipating like just really getting angry at just letting off that pressure. And it's also the other thing about Miami is like, people here, it's not that unusual for someone to just like open up with a machine gun on the expressway because they're just like really upset. Like people definitely carry hammers around just to like attack people. And so,
Christ.
It was not safe at all to do that. But I think what I sort of figured out when I got into DBT was it was like one of the only places in my life that felt safe to like let out. These were times when it particularly ramped up at a time that like my wife was increasingly abusive, just like in terms of the intensity of it and the sort of frequency of it. And it didn't feel safe to like get upset at her at all. And so, if I was at like a rental car counter and the person was like saying something bizarre and like, just acting crazy, I would just like let loose at them, and just I would be screaming at them like a crazy person and embarrassing my family. And then later I'd be embarrassed. And I'm really glad that DBT has allowed me to let go of that.
Totally. And I have so many things to say, but the first one is, what about DBT has let you let go of that?
I mean, I think there are a bunch of things. I think number one, like it's made. I mean, I think the main thing is it's the combination of skills have let me just be more comfortable feeling the way I feel about a variety of people. Like I don't feel it's not that I go around like telling off people that I care about or that are friends now. I feel more comfortable even internally just being like, yeah, like this person is doing something that's hurting me. Like I don't have to put up with this. I can walk away. Or even sometimes, saying things to somebody in like a dear man kind of, it's given me a lot of outlets to where like that steam, it's not getting bottled up inside because I don't. So that's, it's a combination of the distress tolerance skills and really just feeling more comfortable with myself as a person. I'm allowed to have negative feelings about people that are not just random people, but are people that are closer to me. And that's the number one thing.
That's awesome. And probably being able to identify more of what are you angry about and why, and is it anger or is it something else, might be helpful too, because that's kind of a big component of DBT. So if somebody, let's say I'm in Miami and I haven't told you, which would be very rude, but I'm in Miami and I'm driving my Lamborghini with my machine gun down the street. That's how I picture Miami. I'm not sure. And never been. And you're going for a jog and I blast through a stop or a crosswalk. What do you do now?
I just let it go. I wait for people to drive through. I think I've also just come to more of a, I don't feel quite as, look, I mean, it's hard not to open up a discussion. I think there's been a lot of discussion on your podcast about the like favorite person phenomenon. And when you have that view of people in the world, everything becomes very narrow. Your field of vision becomes extremely narrow, and it's hard to, I think I feel a lot more. I'm able to feel a lot more grace for other people, and it's meaningful to me to say maybe this person's having a bad day, like maybe they're really in a hurry, like, and also like I don't have any interest in dying. Like I'm gonna get across the street when I get across the street, and it's not worth it to me to feel the way I'm gonna feel afterwards, regardless of how the other person reacts. The skills have allowed me to have that, yeah, more of a live and let live kind of view of even people that are doing things that are just, there's just no argument that there is no other, right? Like if you're blowing through a crosswalk where it's like near a school and like all kinds of people are, people crossing with strollers and all kinds of stuff. If you're blowing through that crosswalk, there is no other side. And also it's one of those and things. There's nothing to be gained.
Yeah. And they're not going to change the way they drive based on your reaction. If anything, they'll probably drive more aggressively because now they're mad too.
And also get across the street.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I had so I have a bit of an issue with that as well in terms of like road rage. And I mean, I consider that road rage, even though you're not driving, but same thing. And one day, cause I go for a lot of walks, and I went for a walk and somebody like whipped through the crosswalk when I was about to cross, and I like gave them the finger, and then they pulled over did a U-turn and started following me down the road, yelling at me. And I was like, oh shit, I'm in danger. Like, this is an actual problem. And luckily it kind of resolved, but it was freaking terrifying. And honestly, in the States, I have to control my road rage a lot more because I have to remind myself, like, oh yeah, these people have guns. Whereas in Canada, that's not a thing. Like, this guy can come and yell at, I mean, obviously there are guns in Canada, but people aren't, statistically speaking, maybe like 0.25% of the population is carrying a gun, maybe less. So like, if I can give the finger to somebody on the road and yell at them, I'm not going to die. But if that other person is also angry, in the States, I feel like, and maybe this is exaggerated, but if I was that angry and I had a gun, I could do a lot of damage really quick. And so I have to like control my anger more when I'm in the States, I feel like, because I'm always like a little bit more on edge.
One last thing. I feel like I've been talking for a long time, but I think that those sorts of things, the one thing that was nice about it was it was a perfect opportunity for opposite action. And I found that I sort of forgot about this because it's been a few years now since I really went through with that stuff. But it was the absolute perfect thing to work on with opposite action, and opposite action had a huge impact on that because there's no emotion attached to it. It's like it's harder to use opposite action if it's like your Trump loving abusive dad. You know what I mean? Or like or something like that, where it's like there's all kinds of other stuff baked into it, and you're going to see them again and everything else. The nice thing about this was like I could notice the feelings and aggressively take opposite action of like, I am going to specifically hang back and wait and just let the feelings subside. Afterwards, I didn't feel like, oh man, I really knuckled under when my uncle was talking about how stupid trans people are, you know, like how fake, you know, all these, whatever it is, because I was never going to see the person again. And all I was left with was just that good feeling afterwards of like, I didn't get upset. I acted differently. And so that was a huge deal and a huge win for opposite action for me.
That's amazing. Opposite action is such a good skill.
So there's a bit of a theme developing here, I think, and it's that anger doesn't generally feel safe for us, and I would have to agree. For me, it's a emotion that I think I learnt in an unusual experience very early that it wasn't safe for me to get angry ever, and that there was detrimental effects if I did. And in that situation, I was trying to protect myself. But I think based off that, and we've done a fair bit of exploring of this in therapy for me, I just internalized everything. When I felt angry, I didn't feel like it was safe to talk about it or act on it. When Kat was talking, it might have been you, Laurie, about the teacher at school. I had a boy unclip my bra in primary school, and I was very self-conscious because I'd only just gotten a bra and started wearing it.
Oh my God, the like most horrifying thing when you're a kid. I remember taking my bra off every day when I got to school and putting it in my locker because I was so mortified that my parents were making me wear a bra.
Yeah. So this boy had unclipped it and I kicked him after he did it. But I was the one who got taken to the principal's office, and I was the one that was in trouble. So there was a lot of that messaging that even if I was standing up for myself, and this is where my anger came from early, it was when I was trying to protect myself that wasn't acceptable. And that's had a big lasting consequence on me. I generally internalize it because of that messaging, I think, but there are times where it has seeped out. And I was thinking about examples of it this morning because when it does, it's generally big and horrible. But there was a Halloween thing that we had organised with the kids, and we were all dressed up and we took the kids around trick-or-treating. And Halloween's not like a huge thing here in Australia, not like it is for you guys.
I'm sad for you.
So we kind of just started this thing in our community, and it was quite special to me. My daughter's best friend who passed away, she had cancer, and she was just like a super little weirdo and Halloween mad. So we kind of created this for her, and it was her doing, and then we carried it on after we lost her. So I'd kind of meet at the park and get all dressed up and take all these kids around trick-or-treating, put things up on our community page and say, hey, you know, we're going to bring the kids around, throw some balloons on your letterbox if you're interested in participating, and we won't knock on your door if you're not, you know. And that worked really well, and we would have this massive group of kids. So this day there was a few of us walking around with the kids while they were trick-or-treating. I was dressed up like a crazy person, and we got back to our house and it was quite a warm day and the kids were thirsty, and one of the kids said, can I get a drink out of your hose? And I'm like, yeah, no worries. And then a whole heap of kids had a drink out of the hose, which was totally fine. It's a very Aussie thing to do, to drink out of the garden hose. We all did it as kids growing up. And there were some parents who had a big reaction about it based off one of my close friends' children. They had a bit of a thing with this family, and they were like, oh, you know, it's not hygienic. They shouldn't put their mouths on it. And they were a bit snarky and quite mean about these kids in this family. And I lost it. And I think I think it stands out to me because it's the first time that I maybe had let it out where I'd let other people see that part of me. And I was so furious. I called them out. I said, this has got nothing to do with the hose. This has got to do with your judgment towards this family. And I think it's pathetic. And, you know, I didn't do it like this. Fuck you guys.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you did it like this, that would be very weird. But yes, we can imagine.
Yeah. And I come inside to Scott and I'm like, they fucking wrecked it. You know, this is meant to be this beautiful thing. And they're just carrying on over stupid shit. And I'd left my car up at the park where I met all the kids. So I stormed off. I'm like, they can all fuck off and go home. And I'm storming back up to the park, walking by myself, dressed in this like big, long white thing with these big black eyes, walking through the streets of our town with like this group of people who had never seen me behave like this before. I'm the community person who brings people together. I organise the nice activities, and I had gone berserk, and I'm storming off, and people are like following me, this crazy lady who's dressed as a ghost. And the little community people following me through the streets like, are you okay? What's going on? You know, they were so shocked because it just wasn't a behaviour that showed up for me. And that's a bit of a pattern with that strange example, is that every now and then it spills out. And when it does, it is generally shocking for the people around me because they don't see it a lot. I feel it a lot, but it's generally internalized. And so when it does come out, it is when I have lost control. Regardless of, like, I stand by the reasons why I got mad on that day. They were very justifiable, but how I behaved,
yeah, like, could have handled
not
that differently.
Yeah, and it was disproportionate to that situation. But the other side of that is that what had been going on towards these people and the injustice that was occurring there, and that's like 98% of the time is where my where it comes out is going to be around that, had been happening for a long time. So there'd been some stuff in there that I'd been bottling up because I'd been seeing this occurring, and I felt that it was really unhealthy and toxic, and it was affecting a lot of people who I cared about a lot. And yeah, that was where it spilled out. But that kind of gives an overview, that one situation, of what this looks like for me. It sits there and I do nothing about it and hold on to it. And then, yeah, Chernobyl.
Is there that explosion? Is there a theme? You said injustice, but there's a lot of injustice in the world. What changes it from one to the other? Being able to be internalized to externalized.
Generally, if I'm advocating for someone else, I feel that it's justified to let it out. If it's anger towards something that's occurring to me, I'll internalize it. I think that comes back to that early messaging of if you behave in an aggressive way, it's going to cause you physical harm, in my case. And I think there's some stuff tied up there, and I need to explore this more around feeling like a victim versus a survivor, like when that gets tied in here as well. So I'm very sensitive to feeling like I'm a victim of something. So I would prefer to just let it ride out and do nothing, because I don't want to attach that label to myself. I had a situation, this was in my adulthood, where my friend was attacked. We were walking home and she was just attacked by a drunk girl who had been at a pub. And I stepped in and helped her, and the boyfriend got involved. It was very quick, but he had hold of me like under his arm because I'd pulled his girlfriend off my friend, and like was like punching, like had me in sort of in a headlock and was like punching into my arm and stuff. And I was obviously furious about it, but I just kept saying to him, you hit like a girl, it doesn't fucking hurt. Knowing full well that that was aggravating him.
Yeah, it's just making it worse.
It was making it worse, but I just wanted to behave like he wasn't hurting me when he was. So this is a really tricky one for me, and it shows up a lot, but I'm carrying it around in here the majority of the time. Every now and then it seeps out and other people see it and they're like, oh, holy shit. Yeah, generally it's in here, and that kind of, I've got some tools and stuff that I can use now, and it doesn't pop out probably as much as it used to, but I definitely feel angry a lot, and
you just don't let other people see it.
I just don't know how to make that go away.
Me neither, unfortunately. Thanks, Shannon. Heather, how about you? Because I feel like maybe you and I's experience, you and I's experience. I'm not an English major. What am I supposed to do? Our experience might be more similar to each other. Because I scare the shit out of people.
People tell me I'm intimidating, and I actually hate that. I mean, okay, part of me loves that. The angry side of me loves that, but I really am a nice person. So my anger is a lot externalized, and it's something I'm super working on. Actually, I'm going to therapy weekly right now, and my homework for the week has been to be gentle, and that's it. And that has been incredibly hard for me. And it's really opened my eyes to how often I respond in a hostile way. I'm just really quick to just be pissed about everything, or victimize myself in a way that everyone's just against me, is how I'm always responding. And okay, everyone and always are really big words, but it's not entirely like that.
That's some black and white thinking.
Yeah. So I've put a dry erase board beside my bed this week that just says be gentle. And the amount of times I've had to stop what I was saying to someone in my family and just do that has been really eye-opening to how angry I am. Doing DBT therapy has helped a lot in the sense of I have been violent before. And I mean, I don't hit my family or anything, but I used to hit walls or throw stuff that I knew would break for sure, or just beat up my car, because hit the windows because I'm so angry. I don't do that anymore, thankfully, but I still feel angry all the fucking time. And I find that I wake up angry. There's definitely a pattern of I'm mad in the first 10 minutes I'm awake in the morning, and it's really almost always over nothing. But it's someone
do you have
has
bad
wronged
dreams?
me. No, I just wake up and go out into my house and someone has wronged me in some kind of way. Someone didn't do something to help me take care of the household, or the dogs have ruined something, or just things that are just part of life. But I will take it so personally, and I'll be the only one awake. So it's really my own problem, but I'll just be raging out and being oh, this is going to be a shit day because I'm already cleaning up shit or whatever, and it's just inappropriate amount of anger. So those are little things So whenever someone actually pisses me off, like rightfully you would be mad, I really lose it. Like I will cuss someone out so fast or like threaten to physically fight them. Thankfully, somehow I've never been to jail. Or as an adult, I have never gotten to like a physical altercation like that. I have been carried away from many. My husband doesn't let me fight people, thankfully, but I do try to. And that is something that is illegal and also not cool. And also, I don't think I probably am good at fighting. It's just my mouth. Like, it's just probably going to get hurt one day. So I'm really trying to work on just not responding. And the thing that has helped me a lot recently, I know Kat's familiar with it. I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with parts work, or some people refer to it as internal family systems, I think. So my therapist and I do some work like that too. And basically, I have been trying to respond to myself internally before responding to other people. And that's been a lot of impulse work, but I have found that it is really helping me control being outwardly angry. I'm still pissed, but like I have started like, okay, so the part of myself that's really angry I have found in therapy is teenage me. And so that's usually who's responding to everyone. It's very immature. It's very like self-based and protective. So I feel like that's what's responding when I'm responding angrily. And so I have started to use the be gentle as my second like inner voice after I get the mad thought. And that has really helped me not respond like my teenage self to whoever I'm interacting with. And that has become over the past like 3 weeks, doing that every day has really helped it just become a part of my inner voice now. So yeah, that's been a really helpful thing to look into.
Thanks, Heather. Truthfully, I'm feeling really shitty right now about how different my experience is from you guys. Like, I don't know if I'm going to cry or just dissociate. I'm not sure which yet, so bear with me. Because I'm like a really mean person. Like a really fucking mean person. And I know that I'm a good person and I care a lot about people. And that's why I'm a mean person, because I care so much about people and I care a lot. And I have a fucking mental illness that doesn't help, right? But like, I too have not been to jail. I probably should have been to jail many times over how angry and violent I become. And I have kicked holes in many walls. I've stabbed through many couches. I've broken doors. I've yelled at people on the street. You Kat, you break doors too? Yeah, big fan. My mom, it got to the point where my mom made me learn how to repair walls because of how many walls I destroyed in her house, because she just couldn't keep up. It just like devastates me, to be honest, because it is a symptom of a mental illness, and I try and give myself a lot of grace in that when I was incredibly violent towards my family and would yell at people on the street and get mad at people on the bus and whatever and be really scary, I was a teenager with undiagnosed, untreated mental illness. Right? I have like that the radical acceptance is that is the situation. I am not an evil person, right? I am not somebody who was doing that to hurt other people. I was doing that to, and when I say that, I mean like I was very physically abusive to my family, incredibly physically abusive, and it is awful, and nobody deserves to live like that. And it was very scary, and I know there were many days where they worried if they were going to wake up alive. 100%. I know that, they've said that, and I believe them because it's very scary. And it was a lot. And I was also a teenager with undiagnosed mental illness, even a child with undiagnosed mental illness, right? It's not that is not my fault, quote unquote, but it's also not an excuse for hurting other people. It's an explanation for why I was hurting other people. And it really feels or felt or still feels, I don't know, like it's not myself when I'm doing those things. And I never want to conflate borderline personality disorder with dissociative identity disorder, right? It's not the same thing. And when I say it doesn't feel like myself, I don't mean that it feels like a distinct personality. It feels like a thing that I cannot control and is outside of myself. So perhaps it's a dissociation that is a weird form of dissociation where I'm physically hitting, kicking, throwing, threatening, and I'm like, I want to stop. I physically want to stop doing this, but I cannot stop doing this. And when I was first diagnosed with BPD, I was doing a criminology and psychology degree, my undergrad. I did a joint major. And I've always been really interested in forensic psychology, which is like the intersection of law and psychology. And in Canada, like I think in the States, it's called like the insanity defense. In Canada, it's called not criminally responsible due to mental disease or disorder. NCRMD is what it's called. And I wrote a paper about how I thought BPD should actually qualify as that because it doesn't in Canada. It's not considered a mental disease. I don't know about in the States, but it's not considered a mental disease or disorder that qualifies as the reason that you would not be found guilty of an offense or criminally responsible of an offense. And I wrote a paper about this because I was so, it to me, it is such a distinct, uncontrollable feeling that is because of my mental illness, not because I'm intentionally doing anything harmful, that I really don't think that it is my own decision in a lot of ways. And now, I mean, I am not a violent person now. I have not harmed somebody in a decade. I sure think about it though. And there are certain triggers in me. And Heather, it's interesting that you said, when you do the parts work, it's your teenage self, because I think the triggers in me are my teenage self triggers, where I am not sure if I'm going to be able to hold it together. And there have been many times where I have been in situations where Aaron has said, like, should we just not go? If you're this angry and you're saying, I'm going to beat the shit out of this person, I'm going to throw shit at them, I'm going to stab them with my fork, I'm going to whatever. He's like, there's no point in us going. And I think that it's because he sees when I get into that angry place, it's almost a point of no return. Of course, there is a return, obviously. I don't know what the return is, and I don't know how it happens. And I can't explain it to anyone, which is almost worse because I wish I could, because then I could put it in place. But the point of no return is so terrifying for me and everybody around me that it is devastating to think about. I have a few instances that I want to talk about that I think highlight some of this issue. So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go into the detail of the harm I caused my family when I was a kid, because that's not my story it's their trauma that, I don't want to out. But I will say that I was incredibly violent, and that is the reality. And I will never be able to change the fact that happened. And I feel terribly about it. And I also dialectically can understand that was not all in my control. And it felt 100% out of my control at the time. There's also instances where I would be beating the shit out of a family member on the side of the road in Vancouver, and strangers would come up and try and intervene, and I would turn on them. And I don't think I ever physically hurt a stranger, but when I'm mad, you get the fuck out of my way, right? And so they would try and intervene, and I would make it very clear that they do not need to intervene, or I would go after them. And that is not okay, obviously. There's no part of me that is trying to sit here and justify any of this. But I have this I know exactly where I was standing on what street when that particular instance happened, where these people tried to intervene. And every single time I walk past that Red Robin that's on the second story on Burrard, whatever, and I think about that exact moment. And it's one of those things where clearly that was a traumatizing experience for me. I have no doubt it was a traumatizing experience for the person that I was assaulting, because it's been 14 years, and I cannot walk past that Red Robin without thinking about this in very graphic detail. And this was an experience that my family unfortunately dealt with probably weekly, daily, a lot. Another memory that I have is Aaron and I were just kind of newly dating. So maybe we were friends for a year, and then we started dating. So let's say this was 2 years in, and 2 years in of our friendship. So, we had been dating a year, and we play this game called Beer Baseball, which is a very fun game. And I now play it sober, which is still fun. And it makes it even easier because I'm not drinking. And we play with this like at the dollar store, like at Walmart, they have these like foam baseball bats for kids. Do you know those ones? So we play with those because obviously a bunch of drunk people should not have real baseball bats because that would be a very bad idea. So we play with these foam baseball bats. And I got really mad at a friend of ours because he was intentionally triggering me about a thing that I'm very anxious about, which is throwing up. I have a big issue with. I've gone through a lot of therapy about it, done a lot of, I think I've talked about it before, having to listen to people throwing up on repeat was part of my exposure, which was not fun. This was prior to that. This is a person who's known me a long time. And he was egging on like, oh, I'm going to puke on you. Oh, I'm going to puke on you. And like, just kind of like doing it on purpose. And I got really fucking mad. And I went to storm off and Aaron tried to intercept me storming off. And I like flinched with the bat kind of thing. Like I wasn't going to hit it. And again, it's a foam bat. You're not going to like, it doesn't hurt anyone. I just like flinched and I wasn't going to hit him. And he like backed away. And then I had this like, oh my God, he's scared of me, which honestly, fair enough. And I remember just losing my mind, going to the ocean. We were on an island at the time, walking to the ocean. Sorry, I'm not going to go into detail. Going to the ocean, self-harming. And he was like, what are you like, what the fuck happened? And I was like, you're scared of me. That is my biggest thing, is that I know I'm scary, but I never wanted him to feel like I was going to hurt him because I never have. And that was a huge trigger as well. And then, it's funny. I work in a substance use center, of a few substance use centers, and they have these really big chairs. Really heavy chairs that people sit on in groups. They're intentionally really heavy. They're probably like 50, 60 pounds because they don't want people throwing them. And I always laugh because I go, you put my BPD rage up against one of these chairs and I'm just going to kill someone with this chair instead of a normal chair that would just hurt. And it's so funny because every single time I move one of these chairs, people go, oh my God, these are so heavy. And then I explain why they're so heavy. And it's like, this is my rage is unstoppable, which is the scary part, right? I think I could actually kill someone when I'm in that state.
I just want to say that everything that you've just explained, and you're saying, I think I'm more like Heather, everything that you've just explained is exactly what happens on the inside for me without the actual acting out. The thought processes, wanting to hurt people, I can be visceral with my words, but it's like a freeze response externally where I can't. And right. I think it's because I don't feel safe, because the times that I did ended up being quite bad for me. But all of that happens on the inside, and then there's just nothing on the outside. And so I don't know that if it is actually that different apart from you carrying what you're carrying, which I can completely understand. I think there is a lot of similarities in the way that we experience it. It just presents differently. And I'd like to see what you guys think that feel like it's internalized. Is that, are you feeling the same way on the inside? Like the feelings of, I can't tell you how many times I've just wanted to be able to punch someone in the face. Like really, really wanted, pictured myself doing it. I can't, I don't, but I feel like if I could, then I could just let it go and it wouldn't sit there and bubble like a cauldron, and when it is bubbling, I almost feed it. Like I throw more into it and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'm just wondering if it's the same for you guys that have mentioned that it being internalized, if the feelings behind it are the same.
Yes.
Thanks, Shannon.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Yeah, the thought process, a lot of the thought process is certainly back in the day, and like just that feeling of being evil and shameful because of the thoughts that you have in as well. That's very familiar. Like doors and walls and stuff. Totally, 100%. From like trauma, like my understanding, of it is that you can have triggered fragments. So like there's something early where, like Shannon was saying, and like you were saying, Laurie, like there's something early that happens where you discover what is the safest thing to do. And like if I look back, and it's like I vaguely now can remember that really early instances of like sexual abuse where I was shocked and angry as a child that was happening, and then just gradually, like the inevitability of that being ignored. It's just like there's just no point. Like there's something early that teaches you whether, fight is the most appropriate, not appropriate, but like the most effective to make you feel safer, or whether like freezing is the safest thing. And then like you say, you have no control over that, because as soon as your like trauma neurology is activated, like your prefrontal cortex gets shut down, so there's no thinking there.
Totally.
And but then like sometimes there is a little bit, and that's when you're like aware, and it's like, I don't want to do that, but I can't stop it, I'm just in it, and it's just kind of there. So yeah, and just like that whole feeling of being evil, like it's just sad, because it's not, it's just safety, it's just feeling scared, it's just being overwhelmed and needing somebody to make you feel safe, and it's not there.
And I think trying to maintain some sort of control when you have no control over your emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. Heather?
I want to respond to both of them, to Shannon and Kat. I find it so interesting that we do kind of represent it outwardly or inwardly different, because it is the same feeling. It comes from the same place too, I think, where we have these similar experiences and we go different directions with how we are handling them, in the sense of as a child, found it not safe to have an opinion or a voice, or like I never fought my parents. I was never standing up for myself, wasn't allowed to. And if I ever tried to, it was taught really quickly that was a horrible idea. And it seems that like my brain just went in a different direction with it, that once I felt like I escaped that, I will just fight anyone. It's like I won't let my voice not be heard. And it's a problem. It's not okay. But it's like I force that now. But I think it does stem from the same kind of feelings inside. And I super agree with what Kat said, which is that it's from a place of fear. Whenever I've had many conversations with my husband trying to talk through these things and be like, why am I so angry? And when I get to the root of it, it's typically just that I was scared. And that's so interesting, because no one would guess that I'm scared with the way that I'm acting, which is that I'm
it's like the opposite of scared.
Yes, that I'm making them scared.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because like when I've like blown up, like the worst time, so it's like I want, and also like Shannon said about feeding it, like I want to preempt everyone else being angry. Like I assume, I'm like, shit, I've done something wrong, something has happened, everyone's going to be really angry, like I'm going to be really, really angry with me, and then no one else can like surprise me, or like no one's going to be angry with me if I'm already angry enough that they'll be like, yeah, you know how bad you were. And I think part of that is it as well. And it's just like, I think that's part of my neurology of the internalization of it, if that makes sense.
That totally does. Shannon?
Now that you've mentioned fear, just took me back to what Heather said earlier about being gentle, and that she's working with that at the moment. And being gentle is something that I fear, because I feel like even if it's just the little cauldron that's just there bubbling in the background, and it's not big and explosive and, having huge witchy concoctions blown out of the top of it. If I was just to be gentle all the time, I'm so scared that I can't take care of myself. I can't protect myself. I'm so on edge, and maybe that's part of why I hang on to this rage and anger, just there in the background and have not really completely worked to get rid of it. Because even though I generally can't do anything with it effectively, it's almost like that hypervigilance thing, like if I'm, and where I mentioned before about this whole feeling like a victim, if I'm gentle, I feel like there is an opportunity for people to hurt me. Whereas if I am a little bit tough or a little bit intimidating or a little bit scary, people don't look at me like you're somebody who I can hurt or take advantage of, or there's like this, it feels like a little bit of a balancing act in the background.
I think that righteous anger is really hard, isn't it? Because it's like, I know that you are wronging or thinking about or about to, and if you, like I do that as well. Like if you don't hold on to the righteous anger about it, you have to look at the fear or like the grief of it, and like how dangerous it is or how unfair it was and how actually hurt you were. And the anger is just like, for me, it's something that is above that and is protecting me from feeling the actual pain of it.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to speak to somebody who's in my inner circle, people who I feel really safe with, they would tell you that I am gentle and kind, and I feel almost childlike in my vulnerability a lot of the time. And, like I can come on a podcast and talk about a suicide attempt, or I find that easier to do than talk about rage. I could tell you my suicide story easily.
This is the hardest topic we've ever had for me, I think.
This is, like, for me, the most vulnerable I've felt. And there are people who I feel really safe being vulnerable with, but I can share it here, but I can't feel it around people that aren't in that absolute core circle, because I am so terrified that the minute someone sees my vulnerability, it's an invitation.
Yeah, I mean, there's people are saying a lot that I identify with. I think that, when I was yelling at people in crosswalks, I could feel like ahead of time, like I don't want to, like I really don't want to do this. I shouldn't do this. I'm going to feel terrible doing this. And yet I also at the same time had the exact same feeling that was like, I'm gonna do it. Like it's inevitable. Like the cross coming up in 3 blocks, and like I can plan not to do it, but like I know I'm gonna do it. And that was really hard. But I think that hearing what everybody's saying, and I'm curious if people feel differently, although I don't think that's gonna be the case. To me, I think one thing that I do hear is the seeds of why people with BPD, or at least the constellation of symptoms that it seems like we all share, the seed of why it's treatable, why we can change, is that I think we feel really bad. It's happening and we don't have control over it, but we never get to truly 100% feel like this is the right thing to do. I'm doing the right thing. Like in the middle of it, I could feel totally out of control and like I didn't have agency. But I also knew in my mind that I was absolutely doing something against my values, and I felt terrible about it at the same time. And I do think that there are those people out there, some of whom maybe we've been partners with, who don't have that capacity, where they just, their outward anger, it looks the same, but there's nothing inside that's saying, this is not, we should not be doing this. This is not okay. Like, I feel ashamed of this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to need to apologize for this later. Stuff like that. So maybe, I don't know if grateful is quite the right word, but maybe I do feel grateful for that a little bit, that I'm not one of those people who is just like, who is angry and I'm like 100% like, this is the right thing to do. Like, let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's interesting about that, Dave, is that's actually the reason that it's BPD is not part of the insanity defense or the not criminally responsible defense, right? Is because you do know it's morally wrong, which is actually the legal test that you need to have to, I mean, you're a lawyer, Dave, you know better than I do, but you're right, you've had the actus reus, which is the actual like act itself, but then the mens rea is the actual mental culpability of it, and that is the test of not criminally responsible due to mental defect. And we do have that because we do know it's wrong, we just can't necessarily stop it.
Well, I'm curious, other people, I have never had a problem apologizing, and not just sort of like saying the words, but like when I apologize, like I really mean it. And there are people out there and look, it's not always easy to apologize to some people, right? If you have someone who's been an abuser or something, and then you like flip out on them, I'm not saying I'm good at apologizing to them, but there are those people who just can never apologize. And I'm just curious what everyone's experience is with apologizing or making amends afterwards if we've been unjustifiably angry at somebody.
I over apologize, and that's not just being Canadian, but I also do have a really hard time with apologizing to the people that I've hurt the most, because there's nothing that I can say that will make it better, if that makes sense. So I can apologize, and they can even say, it's okay, it happened, but it's okay. And I will never be able to stop apologizing because I still feel like an asshole no matter what they say or what I say, because there's no going back in time and fixing it.
I also over apologize. I have no issue apologizing when I was unjustifiably angry, or even if I was just too angry situationally. Sometimes it takes me longer than others to get there. Kind of like what Laurie was saying with the people that it matters the most that I've hurt. It's really hard to like admitting it. Like being sorry means you have to like accept that you did it. And sometimes that's harder when it's really serious. But I do always apologize. I can't think of a time I've just been so wrongly angry or hurt someone and haven't apologized at some point.
It's whether or not the people believe the apology, I think, is part of my issue. And I think they don't believe the apologies often because it seems so drastic. How could you have possibly done that thing and feel sorry about it? I would never do something like that and feel sorry about it, because if I did that, it would be intentional. And I think that's the difference, is that for us, it's not intentional. And so the apologies are incredibly genuine, but they sometimes don't come across that way because it just doesn't make sense rationally to other people.
Accountability is one of my values, like one of my higher rated values when you do that assessment. And I think it's something that I'm good at. I'm very good at apologizing. And I think it's something I feel proud of in my parenting. Like there are times where my kids have experienced that rage. There's a really pivotal time, and Elsie reminds me of it, a memory where I was angry and I was raging, yelling, it wasn't physical, but there was a lot going on for me. And she said to me, and she might have only been maybe 13 or 14 at the time, and she said, "You're not angry at me, you are angry at this thing," and named the thing that I was angry at. And she said, "You're yelling at the wrong person."
Wow.
And in that moment, I knew 100% she was right. And I sat down and I hugged her and I said, "I'm so sorry." And that is something that I have always been exceptional at, is to be able to admit when I'm wrong, apologize for it, and also make it really safe for other people to do as well. The kids are very good at saying, "Hey, Mum, this is how I screwed this thing up," because they've had it modeled to them a lot. So they have seen it. And honestly, a lot of the time it is not focused at them. They might see me raging about the thing, but this day I was yelling at her with something little that she had done, and she was the person who copped it, but she knew that that was disproportionate to what had occurred with her, and it was coming from this other place. And the fact that I love that she called me out on that.
Wow, that's an insightful 13-year-old.
Yeah, and it's because we talk about this stuff and what it looks like and why it happens. And so then when they experience the same things, they don't have to go through half their life wondering where this comes from and how it shows up, because we've talked about it. We know what it looks like. We know how to apologize. They can apologize to me. I can apologize to them. And that part is so, so healthy, even if it's driven by this really strange, toxic thing in the background. But this is a side quest to that. I was thinking about a time recently when I was in Melbourne. We had gone to Phillip Island to watch the penguins. It's the little fairy penguins, and they walk up the beach to their little huts and their babies. And so cute. And there was a guy there who they tell you all over the speakers, please no flash photography. It messes with their eyes. They can't find their way back to their houses. And this guy come and pushed in front of us and started taking photos using a flash. And I was so irate, like Scott could feel the tension. And he's like, come on, we're going to go up and watch from the boardwalk. He just wanted to get me away from there. And we went up the top. We were having a lovely experience. And I seen this guy leaning over the side of the boardwalk with his phone setting off the flash in the penguin's eyes. And like, you can download the photos. They give you access to free professional photography. So if you want the Instagram shot, you just download it from their website.
That's actually super smart.
I lost it. I went up to the guy and I snatched the phone out of his hand because I'd said something down the bottom. I'd said, you need to stop this. It's not okay. And was controlled about it. And then when he didn't stop, I spoke to the staff. And then Scott was like, okay, we're going to move away because you're not coping with this scenario. And then I pulled the phone out of his hand. And if there wasn't 200 penguins around us, I would have yeeted that fucking phone as far as I could, but I was worried it would hit a penguin.
Because you're a normal human being who cares about the penguins.
There was a lot of people around. I told him I was going to smash it. I said, I'll give it back to you, but if I see you taking a photo again with a flash, I will fucking smash your phone. This poor man, like he's like, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with you? You've been told over and over again.
I'm literally on your side 100% here. Those penguins need to see their homes. They're going to die out here alone.
Like, the rage was so intense. If I had let go and I not only would have I smashed his phone, I would have smashed his face. I would have dragged him out of there, run over him 6 times with my car. And
then made all the penguins eat him for good measure, just as like revenge. Cover him in seafood
over the fence where they keep the foxes so they can't get to the penguins.
There you go.
But like, it's funny now that we talk about it.
But it's not funny then. No, totally.
It was not funny. And then he was like, he swung his elbow at me and then Scott grabbed his elbow and he's like, right, it's time for you to go home, mate. We don't harm penguins and we don't harm women. Like, this really lovely night at the Penguins, my child was there. My 11-year-old child watched his mum tear a phone out of somebody else's hand. And then I had to do all of it's not appropriate to do, like, behave like that at people. But the whole time, I still feel justified.
Yeah, totally.
It's ridiculous. The whole scenario is ridiculous. But I'm not apologizing to that man because I don't feel sorry for that, you know?
That's a really good example of like where that injustice comes in. And I do feel that I get the most now. So I for context, I have not like hurt anyone physically in like over 10 years, right? Like this is not a current state. I'm not violent. I may think violent thoughts, but I think that's more common than people think and they just don't talk about it. But I can be really mean with my words. And I am often very mean with my words when somebody is hurting somebody that I love. And that is counterproductive. And I'm really good at it. Like if I am after you with my words, it is scary and it is mean and it is petty and it is fucking awful. And like, I hate everything about that about myself. But I can definitely take somebody down with my words pretty easily. Heather, I know you have to go in a couple minutes. I would love to ask you 2 questions to wrap up. The first being, can you feel the rage coming? And if so, what does it look like?
So yeah, it's kind of like, which that was a different episode, but we were talking about it recently with the mood swings and my like window, the list of physical symptoms. it's kind of that, like I get the ball in my chest and it grows and grows and grows until it's in my throat, and then it just kind of shoots out of me. It's what it feels like. But I always can feel it coming. I can't stop it every time. I know when it's like even my husband has learned when it's starting.
Yeah.
Similarly to Shannon, I get in situations like that often where something that would make anyone mad, but then you're the one that like acts on it because someone's just doing wrong in front of you, and you're like, I have to stop this. You can't get away with it. The justice is strong with me as well. So like we were at a graduation a couple of months ago for my sister, and I had something like that happen. There were teenagers behind us and they were just talking over everything the whole time, and I couldn't hear any of the speeches, and they were like ruining graduation for me. And my husband could like feel the tension start coming off of me, and I would start like looking back at them and turning back around. And so we had to, he like actually was like, do we need to move seats? He puts his hand on me for comfort. Like there's a point where everyone can start tell that I'm about to lose it.
But in situations like that, and the penguin one, and there's so many other examples, a lot of people wish that they had the ability to be like, shut the fuck up, you're ruining graduation. Or get these phones out of these penguins' faces. Look at how cute they are. They need their eyes. And I'm sure if there were 200 people there, Shannon, I bet 175 of those went, thank God for that woman saying something. Should you have ripped his phone out of his hand? Probably not. But at the same time, he had his chances and he did not take them. And so, it is, violence is never justified. Being mean on purpose is rarely justified. Like tearing somebody down is not justified, but also like smarten up, people. What are you going to do? I think it's like doing that in a more effective way is the part that we need to learn how to do better. Heather, so final question for you, if you have 1 minute, is are there any particular skills or anything that helps you prevent or manage these issues when they do come up, when you feel that ball going into your throat?
Well, I do try to use the tip skill, especially like dunking my face in ice water, but that's not always available, and that's only if I catch it on time. So I mentioned that I've started the be gentle kind of thing, like trying to change my inner voice. And other than that, really the best I have is I just have to leave the situation. I just
that's not
I leave my house in the car all the time. I'll just, if I start getting too heated and I know I'm going to lose it on someone in my family, I just go driving and usually cry or scream in my car. And then it doesn't really fix it, but it saves everyone else.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Dave, do you have time to answer those last two questions or no?
I mean, I think I've kind of answered the second one already, but I mean, it's
yeah, that's true.
As with all this stuff, it's amazing how closely I think my experience tracks Heather's, where it's just that feeling in the chest. Sometimes I would get shaky, like to the point where like my voice would shake. My jaw would get real tight, and I'd grind my teeth, and it was just that feeling of just getting bigger, something getting bigger and bigger and bigger in my chest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's always interesting to hear how parallel our experience.
Totally.
And it's so helpful.
A girl in my DBT class called it the fiery bitch ball that ends up just going up and up and up and up and up. And I've never heard a better example than that. That's exactly what it is. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks so much, Dave. Talk to you soon. Bye. So Kat and Shannon, Kat, there was a point a few minutes ago that you got emotional. And I'm curious as to if you want to talk about that and what was that about?
Modeling good parenting. I mean, it's quite like watching like a beautiful sunset or something. Like it's kind of beautifully, grieffully, painfully wonderful. Yeah, because it's a sense of like I realized what was missing, if that makes sense. But yeah, and just I was around like apologizing. I used to apologize for existing all the time. I stopped like until recently. And my therapist would be like, every sentence she'd be like, "Why there was sorry in that sentence?" And I'd be like, "Oh, I'm like, said it in case my existence is offensive, you know."
Mm-hmm.
But it's the same as that kind of like getting angry with myself to preempt it. Like I'll say sorry to preempt it as well. It's like, I don't know if this is going to annoy you, but I'm sorry if it will. And then I'll say whatever. Yeah, like that comes from the same root, I think, weirdly. Yeah, but actually, big apologies I can do, but I think, like you say, the people that I would do a big apology to, I can't blow up in front of.
Right.
Because I care what they think too much. And it's hard, like Shannon was saying, it's hard to be vulnerable in those feelings. Like, I also struggle with, like, saying that I'm struggling. Like, there's a lot of people that know that I've struggled, but there's not a lot of people that ever will know that I'm struggling, or that I'm angry. And exactly the same with the ball and just feeling like I'm going to explode. It feels very similar to when I'm just going to cry, but is more likely to involve hitting something. I was laughing about hitting cars. There was once I actually reversed accidentally. I was having a really bad day. I was like late for a COVID vaccination. And I accidentally like reversed into someone else's car. And then I got out and she was like, "What did you think you were doing?" And I just like started like hitting the car. I was like hitting my head. And like that van still has dents from that day. I was like, I didn't know you could dent a car with like your hands. But there you go.
You're so strong. Yeah. But that rage makes us strong. I am physically terrifyingly strong when I am in that rage.
It's weird, hey? I only do skills now because I can remember. My brain's gone all kind of fuzzy. Yeah, pace breathing when I first notice it, and quite often that will be enough to move me from anger to self-validation, and then that will calm me down, the self-validation, because I'll do that kind of, usually I'll check which part is triggered basically, and then have that inner conversation of like, why are you triggered? That is not now. It's fine, like we're okay. And then if it's gone too far, there's actually, it's actually on my Instagram because I recorded it because I don't know, but it was a therapy session, and there was just something she said that just broke rapport very slightly, and I shut down. We had a lovely conversation for the rest, like the last 15 minutes of the session, and then I went outside, started like sobbing and like being really like angry that she hadn't noticed and like really upset that she hadn't noticed. I rang her and apologized if I'd been weird and was like, but I'm not okay. And she was like, I have another session. And then I was enraged that she was like and it was that kind of thing where I was like, half of me was like, how dare she not have time? And then the other half was like, well, yeah, obviously they matter as much as I do. And then, but yeah, and then it's tip. But it took me 40 minutes of like being just out of my box, absolutely sobbing and really angry, until I even remembered that ice packs existed, and I was like, oh, that might help. And then just like ice pack to the face is usually what I end up doing, because that kind of curling up kind of helps as well. That's my skills for that one. And just walking. Lots of like, I used to run. I actually started running when I would get so angry and or upset. It's very kind of tangled. And then I would just run until I physically fell over. And then just cry and then run again. And like, but anyway, so I can't run anymore because of chronic illness. But like, I walk now a lot.
Yeah, I go on a lot of angry walks. A lot of angry walks. Yeah, it helps a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Shannon, how about you? What does it feel like coming up, and what do you do to try and prevent or deal with it?
Same as you guys. I always make the analogy to the witch's cauldron because I feel like it just sits in my belly there, just kind of bubbling away. And so that's what my therapist used when we tried to sort of put imagery on it. But the clenched jaw, tight muscles is a real thing for me. But it's like that bitch ball that you talked about. The cauldron just starts to bubble and bubble and bubble. And so then I can think about what it looks like because I'm thinking about witches' potions, right? So
Yeah, very Halloween.
generally, if it's like the mama bear rage, like someone has hurt my kids or my partner, it's this purpley thing that's popping up. And so there's different colors. If it's righteous rage, it's red. Like, and I can watch that happen. So yes, I know it's coming. I can feel the cauldron starting to bubble over and you can start to see what's coming out of the top of it. When I did this work with my therapist, and a lot of it was around trying to learn how to protect myself because of this freeze state that it puts me in. And I feel very unsafe. There has been a situation in my adult life where I was coerced into a situation, started to feel very unsafe, and that freeze response happened. And it shattered my illusion that I was angry enough and dangerous enough to protect myself because I wasn't. I reverted back to my vulnerable child freeze state. And I didn't know how to move forward with my life, knowing that about myself, because it shattered that illusion that this level of rage that I experience, people should be scared of me, because no.
Because you're scared of you. I'm scared of me.
Yeah. So we talked a lot about riding the wave rather than just letting it pick you up and dump you. And a lot of that is mindfulness techniques, like so taking a step back from it and watching the cauldron bubble and looking at the colours and what's popping out of the top of it. Imagery works really well for me. Naming it. So it's anger, it's rage, it's fear. Sometimes I'm able to trace it back to original roots and triggers, which is really, really good. But once I name it, then I know what I'm dealing with, and then we rate it on a scale. So she talks about the rage thermometer. So it's green at the bottom and nice and calm, and then it goes up to like red at the top through all the different shades of those colours. I bring it back to the cauldron because I can put the colours in there and stuff as well. But you can just rate it on a scale of 1 to 100. Is it resentment, annoyance, frustration? I feel a bit mad. I'm angry. I'm at boiling point. I'm going to tear someone's face off. Rating it and then noticing how it feels in my body, where it's sitting. And so I can use skills in the, like as I'm going through this, I can use skills. So tip is one, paired muscle relaxation, because a lot of it is tension for me.
Yeah.
Noticing the thoughts after I figure out how it feels in my body, then noticing the thoughts and the impulses, because the impulses are big. When I can sort of notice them and name them, I have to use my no judgment thing, the DBT thing, where you come at it without judgment, because I can flip that rage back on myself so quickly. And that is that's dangerous, because the level of self-hatred that comes with that is usually comes in at the same intensity as the anger. So being able to look at how it feels and what I'm thinking, then I can opposite action it, rage walk, tip skills. I really like Dave's version of radical reality in this rather than radical acceptance, because generally whatever the thing is that has set it off is not something that I'm willing to accept, especially if it's around injustice. So radical reality, I can use it like, okay, this thing has happened. Bad things are always going to happen in the world. This is how you are going to feel about it when that happens. This is what reality looks like. It's never going to change. And you have to now decide what type of person you want to be in this situation. So having that little thing, and I've got this wave thing slipped into my crisis management or suicide protection plan that I carry around with me. So if I need to pull it out, I can. I clearly didn't pull it out on the penguin day.
Sometimes you can't.
Sometimes I can. And I sent you, Laurie, the little, because sometimes pause, like just using the stop skill, getting myself, like if we're sitting at a dinner and something's happening, or I will go off to the toilet and there's a little reel that I watch. It's based off a song called Silence by Delirium, I think is the name of the band. And it's actually quite a good song for rage, especially if you listen to the original version, because there's a lot of sort of like Gregorian chants and stuff
love
at the start
awesome.
of it. So I had at times used that song as my stop skill. But there is a guy on Instagram called Jeremy Films Things that has done a remix of that song using lyrebird sounds. The lyrebird here in Australia is a bird that mimics all of the other sounds in the forest. So when you hear them, you will think it's actually a kookaburra, or you'll think that
it's like a parrot, kind of like it can take on everything else.
And they mimic them perfectly. And so he's gone out and recorded, and he's made it like a little film clip that goes with it. And there's like little wombats walking and ravens walking along to like the tune of the music. And I will just watch that on repeat. Like, I don't know how many views that video has got, but I would say 1/4 of them are me.
That's so awesome. You said you sent that to me?
I did send it to you ages ago. I said, I'm just going to show you
I'm
this.
sure I watched it.
When we do the rage episode, I'm going to bring it up.
I was going to say, send it to me again if you think of it, because I'll add it as a link. I'm sure I watched. It sounds really familiar, so I'm sure I watched it. But yeah, send it to me again.
Yeah. So it's just got, he's a great cinematographer. I really love this guy. So he just did it. Somebody said, oh, someone needs to make a remix of these. So he's taken the lyrebird sounds and stitched it into the music. It's exceptional. You'll love it, guys. Awesome. You'll love it, Kat. You really will.
Oh, you totally will. 100%. That's amazing.
So yeah, I will send it. But so that's kind of like, I go to this riding the wave rather than just getting dumped by it, and then try and work in whatever skills feel appropriate. But Dave's radical reality has kind of completely changed the radical acceptance for me.
Awesome.
I can now put these two frames on it, and it seems to make it work a lot better.
That's awesome. Yeah, that was a brilliant, I mean, most of what Dave says is brilliant, but that was a really brilliant one. Yeah, for me, I can feel it coming now. And I think that's a big difference, is I didn't used to be able to feel it coming. And so kind of like panic attacks, same thing, I can start to feel them coming, which helps me prevent them. And so that in itself was a huge moment. And it is this, I do love the fiery bitch ball, but I also feel like tingly, and like my whole body is doing everything it can to not just explode. And it builds up and builds up and builds up. So I think I can definitely feel it coming now. Doesn't always mean it doesn't go somewhere. But sometimes I'll say like, I'm really fucking angry right now. And at least that gives people around me an opportunity to be like, okay, so let's get out of the situation, or let's prepare ourselves, or let's whatever. And in terms of skills, there's so much I could say on this whole topic. I think I could talk for another 3 hours on this topic. I won't, because I have to pee, but I could. And because I care about your time. But I think skills, definitely stop skill, just taking myself out of a situation for a tiny bit of time and just either not going back into the situation or giving me enough time to like prepare myself. Coping ahead is a big one that I think I've started more recently, where if I know that something is going to be extremely anger inducing, I know that I can remind myself of the skills in advance. I find it gets so much worse when I build things up. So if I try and keep myself quiet for a longer period of time, the longer I go, the worse it's going to get. And so I will usually tell a safe person. And the sad part about that is, so Aaron is obviously the easiest safe person to tell, which sucks in a way because it's also really distressing to hear the person that you love talk in a way that is so hateful and angry and violent, in the sense of like violent ideation as opposed to actual violence. And I think that sometimes I wonder if that's so hard to hear because it's like, oh, this could be me on the other side of this at any given moment. And so I try to manage it often on my own first. So doing those things like going for an anger walk and just raging in my head and listening to podcasts and just trying to like distract. But I also do express to Aaron, and he always says, like, I would rather you express it to me than it come out, but we have to express it in a way that is safe. So the other day I was on the side of the road bitching about a bunch of people that I knew were around me. And he was like, Laurie, we can do this in the car, but you can't do this right here. And I was like, okay, fine, like fair enough, blah, blah, I don't care, whatever. And he's like, they can hear you. Like you need to stop doing this here, which is super fair. And then I try and radically accept a lot the past and what I have done, and that it was horrible, and that I feel a ton of regret and have tried to apologize. And the people that I've tried to apologize to haven't accepted my apologies or listened to them. And there's nothing I can do to force them to do that. So I've had to accept that this is reality, and there's nothing I can do about it now other than move forward as a good person who does not hurt people physically. And I also try not to hurt people emotionally, but it is more difficult for me. I would say those are the main things that I try and do. And I also will use things like naps because, again, get yourself out of the situation. The issue with naps is that right? It's so helpful because I often will wake up fine.
Yeah.
The issue with naps is that I ruminate so badly, and this angry cycle can go so strong that I have a hard time falling asleep because all I want to do is just yell and scream and text people mean things and whatever.
Do you find caffeine makes it worse, Laurie?
Caffeine?
Yeah, I've noticed that if I'm like a little bit angry and I have coffee, it'll get a lot more angry. And I stopped drinking caffeine completely altogether at one point to try and control the amount of rage I was experiencing.
I haven't noticed that, but that's interesting. It definitely doesn't help the sleep, right? The rumination gets worse because you're caffeinated and that's interesting. I'll have to think more on that, but I haven't noticed that correlation. So, and now sometimes I'll just double my Seroquel that night, or like PRN, something to just like get my head out of the rumination so that I can sleep. And then the next day I'll wake up and it'll probably be fine. So, I mean, there is definitely a time and a place for medication assistance. When
I have Seroquel as a PRN, and that's what I use it for. I used to take it all the time and I titrate it off.
Yeah.
But I still keep it here because there are times where it really, really helps. And this is one of those times.
I love that drug. And when they first when they first put me on it, they also said that it helps the next day with anger management as well. I don't know how much I know that, but I've been on it for so long that it's hard to know what the alternative is, but it is a great drug for me. Awesome. Well, sorry, go ahead, Shannon.
I feel like it has a great shelf life for me too. And I didn't notice that when I was taking it regularly, but if I have a really unregulated time or I'm quite distressed, I can take it, and even for 2 days, maybe 3 after, I tend to be like really
mellows you out.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, it's a miracle for me, for sure. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. I could talk about this forever, and I feel like there's so much that I haven't said, so maybe I'll have to do another one of these one day because this is such a hard topic for me. Really, really hard topic, as I think we all heard. I appreciate you both, or you all, so much, and we will see each other on our next episode, which will be, I can't remember what, but suicide, maybe? Dissociation? I can't remember what it is, but we'll find it. Awesome. Have a good day, guys. I love you so much, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Superfeeler podcast. This episode was recorded on the traditional and unceded territory of the Matsqui and Sumas First Nations. If you'd like to learn more about the Superfeeler podcast, share your story, or participate in the Superfeelers Club, which is our peer support group, it's totally free, virtual, and open to anyone who experiences intense emotions or has borderline personality disorder, please check out the link in our show notes or go to laurieedmondson.com. If you would like to support the show, we would very much appreciate it. There's an option to do monthly small donations at whatever denomination you'd like, and you get bonus content, extra resources, and extra connection to me throughout. That can be found on patreon.com/superfeeler, or again in the notes below. Thanks again, and have a great day.